So we've got about 15, 20 minutes to have a discussion, and I'm really intrigued about the polarity in the presentations when we speak about the sacred cultural values of a forest and the financial value of a forest, and how these two are not yet compatible. I'll be really keen to hear from the panel, how do you envisage meeting these two? We've got fantastic methodologies from Øyvind, from Karl, from all of you. What are the difficulties? What are the main hurdles in translating the values that Tashka explained to us to investors? You start first.
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a hell of a question. I'll try to bring some inputs or insights on this. I think it's looking into sustainability, which is a term that we use a lot these days, in a as broad as possible sense. Sir David Attenborough, the well-known documentarist from the BBC in the UK, described it as sustainability as a lifestyle that can continue forever. So I think that definition fits pretty well, and I would say that it's important, though, then to look at it not just ecologically, which is, of course, and for good reason, the primary approach on something that has to be a model that has to be ecologically sustainable, but to also look at it economically or financially. Because again, if it's entirely, if it's not economically or financially sustainable, if it cannot continue on its own forever, and I think you all mentioned it, then I think it's going to be very difficult.
Thank you. Øyvind?
Yeah, well, to me it all starts...
Just bring it closer to you.
Okay. Better now? Yeah. Well, to me it all starts with deforestation, actually, because that's when you lose the biodiversity, that's when you lose nature. But for us coming in, trying to re-establish the element of giving alternative livelihood to people that will not destroy the forest, like you are saying, is so important. And I said that changing from timber forest with timber is a good way of getting more value for people and alternative livelihoods over to carbon. And what is the offer for the community if you concentrate on carbon forests that do not offer other fruits that people can live by? I have been listening today to many projects, and there are some alternatives, and I need to learn more about that. And from the Yawanawá people, interesting to learn how they look at it. But again, it has to be aligned with the requirements of the investors that need to have return on their investment.
Yes.
So there is it's difficult to balance these things. But maybe biodiversity carbon credits. No, biodiversity credits could help.
You made a really good point in your presentation about the recognized price of the carbon that the developers are putting into the market. And I just realized that, by a random coincidence, the way you four sat down here, Karl is in a specific point between Tashka and the two project developers, is that a lot of it is about the story you tell to the market. How do you communicate the spiritual values, the medicinal values, the carbon values that are intrinsic to a complete ecosystem? And Karl is doing fantastic work on that. I mean, that's really a great challenge. Can you tell us a bit more about bridging this gap?
Yeah, let me maybe comment on this. I think the forest story is very different, for example, in Colombia or in Central America than it is in Europe.
Right.
If you've got sort of deforested land, because it was a cattle ranch, then anything is better than this deforested land. So even a plantation is absolutely better. But in Europe, for an example, you know, we cultivate about 97% of all the forests. And what we see is, we see an overuse. We see that some countries are losing the forest sink, for an example. Estonia did. Finland lost last year its forest sink. So this means that the forest itself is a net source of carbon. Since in the one country where it's got the biggest forests in Europe. And the problem is because more and more goes into heating. And very little ends up in permanent products. In Austria, for an example, we are a forested country. We harvest 90% of the increment, which regrows. 15% of all and less ends up in something which is a long-term product. The rest is either burned immediately, or it's carton and paper, and it's burned within 1 or 2 years. And this means you send the entire carbon back into the atmosphere, which is not counted, by the way. It's not counted in the ETS, and it's not counted by the IPCC. So, just to come to that, I think, you know, what we need to do concerning forests, and that remarks to that, is we need to see that a forest delivers more than just timber. You know, I mean, it has many different kinds of values. It regulates the climate, it stores the water, it protects us from soil erosion and from anything like that. And if we do not sort of find a financial value for that, then we do not really treat forests in a sustainable manner.
That's great. Chief Tashka, if I could give you 2 wishes, you know, magic, what would you choose?
I choose maintain, save the forest, the sacred where we live. And my dream is one day the whole international community
Segura mais perto.
can wake for this and have this the same way of thinking and to living. Because indigenous people, they are always right there, keeping the knowledge, keeping the nature, not just for them, but for the whole humanity. And I think it's time now, the knowledge from the forest and the knowledge from the Western society coming together and help each other. Because we all, in the end, we are just a big family. We not come from another planet. We are the same planet. I think when we start help each other, the world is going to be much better than we are living today.
That's which one?
The second one is creating local economy. Indigenous people, they are very good business people. We do a business for so long, from Chile to South America. And this business can add the value as environmental, cultural. Any product we have today, they can be tagged with this story. Like in Yawanawá, we are using this necklace here. It's coming from açaí. Açaí is a palm tree. It's a berry. We drink for immemorial times, and now the whole world, I think, is drink too. And we are doing this kind of necklace. A company from US, no, for England, they call Bottle Top is buying. And for free, this guy, his name is Dave Beckham. He's soccer play. He's doing propaganda for us. He does marketing for us. Yeah, he's helping us with that. And we're helping because more and more people is getting engaged with environmental cause, with indigenous cause. Everyone can do a different. Each one of us, wherever we are change of this planet.
Thank you. Thomas, I'd like you and Øyvind to comment on Chief Tashka's wish and still continue on the thread of storytelling, because this is a way of valuing ecosystems, which is one of your biggest challenges, right? And it is a request by the guardians of the forest. How do we convey value to the investors?
I believe a good starting point would be to enroll the younger generation. I'm French, but I live in Denmark. And in Denmark, there's something called skovbørnehave, which means forest kindergarten. And it's a kindergarten, so from age 3 to 6, basically, where the children, even though they live in cities, every day are taken out to the forest. Absolutely every day, no matter the weather. And, you know, in Denmark is not well known for its sunshine. So I think bringing children every day out there in the forest, well, you get happy kids, and you get them to understand the value of what a forest can bring. I think I wish it's actually a nonsense why this is not mandatory. There are some practical issues, how you get them there. You take an electric bus, how, you know, if it's cold, you just put them good clothes on it. I mean, everything can be fixed. I think that the story will build by itself if the younger generation would, from the very beginning, from their very first years, learn the value, feel, understand, you know, the value of the forest. I think that would be the best story we could write.
That's a great idea. Create the next level of people that understand the value. Øyvind.
Well, I can only echo that, because what we have as one of the SDGs that we are reporting to Gold Standard on is education. And we have one person dedicated for educational programs to primary schools in the region where we operate, in the Nika Forest cluster. With a program learning young children what is a forest, why is it so important to take care of it, all the elements of the environment, biodiversity, and so on. We also have an agreement with the National University, where they send students to do their thesis and internships with us.
Oh, great.
So that is extremely important. So the social impact side, I think, need to get a real value. We were trying to, at one point, to describe it as a product, which you could, in a way, buy. You buy the social impact credit.
Great.
But we were not able to get to the final solution there. But there are possibilities, and we do not need to wait for certification bodies to create such things. We can just offer it to the market.
It's true.
That is to build a better understanding. But I do also think for the biodiversity and for people to live from the forest, not by the timber from the forest, we still have some way to go. There are products, of course, like there are trees, bread nuts, and these other things that can be harvested from trees. But how much do they actually give? Can you live by it? Can you feed your family on that? So there is this is really a challenge.
Yeah.
We need to develop more solutions for it.
It sounds like Chief Tashka has developed a really interesting model of having multiple sources of income from non-timber forest products, cultural, advertising, all sorts of things. Karl, in your work with biodiversity, where do you see the appreciation of biodiversity, you know, the cultural appreciation of what the people around you are doing?
Okay. May I just say something? You know, I mean, like, I think everybody can follow this. If you walk in the forest, you know, I mean, what are the places where you suddenly have this feeling? You know, I mean, the places that you go to. I mean, they are the forests. They are the parts that are real forests. They're going to be diverse. There's going to be old trees. You know, this is actually where you have a lot of diversity and forest. Through the plantations, you just walk through. You don't even open sort of your mind to it. And I think, just making the people aware, just feel, I mean, what is it that you feel when you are here or when you are there? Which are the places that enrich you and which places you just pass through? I think that alone, I mean, would make people aware, what a real forest is.
Definitely, definitely. With your work in rewilding, I wanted to ask a bit more on that. Can you share a bit about what sort of feedback you get from the market when you discuss your impetus in rewilding?
Well, that's a pretty good question, because we are actually primarily talking with our members who are not necessarily the market. Yeah, I mean, whatever we do, I mean, like I think the market has a problem exactly finding where the profit is. Yeah, because the profit in rewilding is much more local economy, which is less interesting for somebody who thinks in economy of scale, for an example. Yeah. I think that in general what the reception that we get is that everybody is astonished by understanding the dimension of bringing animals back. But I don't really think they know what to do with this.
Yeah, that seems to and this ties in really well with what Thomas was saying about being hyper-localized, that each place has its own dynamics. So it would be good to understand what you think, Thomas, in terms of, multiplying the benefit of a hyper-local so that people understand the landscape area, something like Chief Tashka is doing, because that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, it is indeed a challenge because, again, you have to play with the both side of the coin. On the one hand, indeed, you need to be very local to make sure that you have the best positive impact possible. At the same time, you need to scale. That is a very common term in the startup world. Everyone wants to scale. What does this mean? Well, it means basically leveraging what it is you do. So being able to remain hyper-local and at the same time finding ways to scale is a challenge. That's why I think we all, in a way, using the power of incentive. I think there's a lot of around what we call a lot in Europe the punitive ecology, right? Where you scare, you shame, you figure point, you tax those who are not enough environmental friendly. Probably still by being local, a good way to scale sustainability and environmental friendly action is indeed in moving from the punitive ecology to positive ecology, where you reward whatever that's environmental friendly behavior.
That's a very good point. Any questions from the audience? No? Okay. I'm going to ask you, Chief Tashka, one last question. You told us what your dream is. Can you tell us what is the biggest challenge you have right now?
Well, the big challenge what we have today, we have everything planning for the Yawanawá life plan, but we don't have resources. The resources still is the big challenge. How implemented the whole plan we have it for the next 30 years. How I'm going to change the way how things going today. Because we have a challenge every day, like our neighborhood from territory is a Brazilian pop star TV show guy. His name is Ratinho. And Ratinho want to log in, surround us. And we say, no, right now we are fighting with them. It's not good when you have a very good neighborhood. He's not a good neighborhood of us. And our fight today, a challenge, is to create consciousness for people. Don't see the forest as a big dollar, but see a forest as a way of living. We use in sustainable way as indigenous people do. That's my big challenge.
Thank you. Can I, just as a closing remark, can I ask you to sing one more Ícaro for us?
Sure.
Just as a closing, thank you. It's a very sacred thing and a very big gift.
Uno vai querer, uno vai querer, uno vai querer, vai voltando aqui. Vai voltando aqui, katsi katsi kurane, Coma coma grande, mari mari grande, capo capo grande, capo capo grande, vai vanai, cana vanai, here hey.
Thank you very much to Chief Tashka. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the audience. We'll see you shortly for the next round.